Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Voice of Adoptees, which brings together diverse and unique voices from around the world to share their stories. If you liked today's episode, remember to give us a like, subscribe, and leave a review. Here's your host, David Shunk.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Voice of Adoptees. I am your host, David Shunk. Today, I'm here with Alicia. She is an adoptee. She's a mother, and she is proudly coming out of the fog. Welcome, Alicia. Will you please tell our listeners a little about yourself, including where you're from, where you're adopted from, and a fun fact about you?
Absolutely. It's Alicia.
My apologies, Alicia. I said Alicia. Yeah, my bad. Alicia. Yeah.
Oh, no, that's okay. That's okay. I answered to Ashley. I'm from Genesee. I was born and raised in Genesee County, Michigan. I was adopted at 4 months old. It was a closed adoption. My parents had very little information. Let's see, a fun fact about myself. I became a mom at night. I got pregnant at 19, and 6 months into getting pregnant, we got a call from my husband's, at the time's, family, and we adopted his little brother. So I was raising a 12-year-old and an infant from the time I was 20, and at the same time I found my birth mom. So it was a lot in 1 year, and it was a wonderful year.
So when you first got that, when you were notified about your biological mother, what was the first things running through your head? What were the thoughts running through your head?
So the thoughts had been running through my head my whole life. My parents did everything right. My mom was a teacher, and I think that really helped inform her when the industry was not doing that. There was no trauma information, anything of that nature. So my mom was really wonderful about that. They told me all along. So I asked questions all along.
Yeah.
Their 18th birthday, I was at the courthouse. I filed for my paperwork, and they giggled and they said, that's everybody's here on their birthday. And it took 6 months and I believe about $400 as an 18-year-old for me to get my own information. And that was a sting. It was hard. I'm a justice warrior kind of person, and I think this was not my decision. And I felt like there should be something there for us that helps us access those things when the time comes. So I got them 6 months later, and it had all of my information in it. My state, Michigan, cuts it up quite a bit, birth year and regulations about what you can get and what you can't get. I happened to fall between a 2-year span where my biological parents could put paperwork into my file with their identifying information, and that was permission for me to contact them upon getting my documentation. Yeah. And it was a lot. It was more overwhelming than I anticipated. My name had been changed, and I knew that. I did not like my original name. I was very glad it was changed. Little things like that is silly,
So what information did you find out that you didn't know?
Well, I names and addresses. I knew that they were from the Florida area. I was able to find the more exact area. I thought I found health history. Actually, pretty significant health history is what I thought. Moving forward, years later, once I started showing people the documents, I was told everything up until my well baby visits, when I was already in the custody of the state, didn't match correctly with what the family had experienced. So I don't know how that happened, and the adoption agency is closed. That was Catholic Social Services.
Okay.
And they're closed now. So, and then my birth father, they had very little information on him. And at this time, it was my understanding he was my birth father. He had signed the adoption paperwork in Florida, and up here, a judge had to, terminate their rights. The Michigan law is that a state judge had to terminate both of their rights, and that was taken care of. and he did include his information. So I waited a while to call him, and we can go into that if you'd rather cover what my reunion with my mom was like first.
So I just want to kind of touch on the beginning a little bit more. What was your birth name when you were born?
Mandy Lynn.
Mandy Lynn. Okay. And then who was it, your adoptive family that changed the name?
It was. Yep.
Okay.
When I was adopted, my parents renamed me. Alice was my grandmother's name. And I had an Aunt Ruth that I was very close to, my grandma's sister. So now my name is Alicia Ruth.
Alicia. Okay. Makes sense. Yeah. Okay. Now, growing up, did you always know you were adopted, or?
I did.
Okay. Do you remember what age you kind of, or did you, okay, you had a funny feeling.
Yep.
Okay.
I had a book. My parents said they started telling me in car seats, and, they said, we knew you didn't even know, but we wanted to make sure you never had a memory of this finding out.
Okay.
So I had this book that I distinctly remember. That was my favorite. And it was illustrated with, they didn't get you from a gumball machine. It was all the 80s kind of stuff. They didn't go to Sears and buy you, that sort of thing. And it did give that societal, traditional, your birth mother loved you. She wanted a better home for you. And so these nice people came in and they took you in. That was, my parents never pushed that rhetoric. It was simply, you were adopted, your mother was young.
Yep.
That is the extent of what we know. And we are here to answer any questions or concerns or anything that we can for you.
Right.
And they did that. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, I guess growing up, when did you start asking questions? Do you know, kind of like what age you started asking questions at?
I would guess very early. I remember watching the movie 5-0 and they had the song Somewhere Out There. And I remember being very little and hearing that song and crying and thinking, everybody tells me she loves me. And I was thinking she's looking at the same moon as me. And that's kind of my first core memory of independently thinking about my adoption.
Okay. Now,
and it has been a big part of my life.
Yeah.
All of my life.
Oh, of course. I mean,
it is my life.
Yeah, it's who you are. Makes sense. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what age would you say you started to get really serious about wanting to know more information about your biological family?
I would say I'd probably started asking my parents sometime between 10 and 11.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And
wow.
Got very serious around 12. Yep. I grew up quick. I was an only child. So, my parents were able to give me all the attention, and I was a talker, and I was a big why.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to know why. And I am completely different than my parents, entirely different. And so that just stood out so much to me. It always had me thinking, I'd like to know where all of these things come from.
Yeah, exactly. So part of the documents when you were adopted, did you have any medical information? I think you mentioned at the beginning.
My parents did. They were given. Yeah, they were given something that didn't have anything identifying on it. Yeah. But it gave the details of my delivery.
Oh, okay.
It did say I didn't have any prenatal care, but it was a normal, healthy pregnancy and birth. It did have very, very minimal health information, like your grandmother wears glasses, and at that time she didn't, and so none of that stuff ended up being correct. It did not have anything helpful.
Yeah. Got it. Okay. So as you got older, when did you start to want to make that jump where you want to maybe reach out or find biological relatives or know more about them? Yeah.
I had made the decision again. That was something I'd always known I was going to do. It was never a question in my mind. I just knew that when I turned 18, that's when I could do it. So it was just a waiting game.
Now, did you purposely wait till 18, or
No,
did
by law.
your yeah? I know by law, but did your adoptive parents not want you to know until 18,
No,
or
they were supportive. I don't want to say anything definitive on that because I can't remember specifically if I asked them, "Will you take me to the courthouse?" or if there was not even a way to do that if I had to be 18.
oh, okay,
I can't remember
okay,
because it's been 23 years.
yeah,
My parents were very supportive through all of it. So I
hmm
think at 16, I think they would have felt that I was ready. And had I wanted it, they would have taken me. So my guess is I either decided maybe I should wait or the court said it has to be you, Addie.
got it. Okay,
Mm.
okay, so
And I'm trying to go back and learn all of that again
yeah,
now.
so as soon as you got that information, and then now we move on to the next phase of trying to track them down. Tell me that whole story.
Well, I had a whole plan. I had all the paperwork, had their last known names and addresses.
Yeah.
And so I had to go to school that day. I went out, we get the mail early in the morning. I had the envelope and I was freaking out and I just left it in front of my mom and we all went about to work and school that day and we all met at home at the same time.
Yeah.
And we were all going to open at the same time.
Okay.
And it was really emotional. I was scared to hurt my parents because of society puts so much pressure on us to be happy. And if we even search for our birth parents or if we even have that need, all of a sudden we're ungrateful. And
Yep.
it doesn't matter whether if your parents don't put it on you at all, because mine did not. But society just had all of that hanging over me. So I panicked and I thought, I can't do this. I can't do this. This is, hurtful to my parents.
Yeah.
And my mom pulled me aside and said, I needed to do it. It was something important for me to do. And it was something that I had wanted to do my whole life.
Yeah.
And not to let that minute of fear, and that meant the world to me. It was,
yeah. It's really odd. I can relate to you with that. Like a lot of my parents' friends, as soon as me, just like you being adopted, as soon as we want to reach out to our blood relatives or find something about biological family, it's like everyone all of a sudden, guess what? They have an opinion.
Yes.
It's like,
yes.
That's weird. Where was your opinion the last 20 years? Like,
exactly. And why can't I love my family and also want to know where I come from?
Exactly.
Why can't those two things simultaneously be true?
Well, just at the end of the day, it's not their choice. It's our choice and it's our family's choice and our parents. Yeah. So,
Yeah. And the biggest thing for me. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, no worries. I was just saying that's why we're, sharing our experiences and stories so we can let people know how we feel about this. So, maybe we can educate, others about how adoptees respond to certain things. Yeah.
That's my hope, because I think just more education, especially in the system, that we would have a lot better outcome and us adults would be a lot more stable mentally. It's a rough journey. And if we would have had that help along the way, and my parents even did try to find me adoption therapists, and it's incredibly difficult. It was something that, I'm sorry, I go off on tangents a little bit, but.
So based off of based off what you just said about the finding, your family tried to find an adoption therapist for you. Did you think you had like underlying issues from being adopted that needed to be addressed?
Absolutely.
What would you say those issues were?
I definitely didn't feel I deserved to be loved. I did not believe for 20 years that my parents could love me.
Yeah.
And I pushed and I did everything I could to prove that they don't love me and they're going to give me back. And that was the primary and very heavy feeling throughout my life.
Yep.
And I'm an open person, so I look different than my parents, so it's not something that I can always hide.
Yeah.
And people, I got a lot of, your mom should have, done terrible things to you, and like just people, teenagers, all of that say terrible things and all I did was want to meet my birth family.
Yeah.
And I was just, I'm all of a sudden awful and ungrateful, and I go home and my parents are like, no, it's okay. So I am just blessed to have that support system at home, and to have people who went out and made sure they were educating themselves so they could give me my best life.
I guess, how did your friends react to you being adopted? What was their kind of view on it? Because it's pretty interesting. It seems like, at least from my experience, it's like, I mean, growing up, my friends seemed to be more interested in my adoption than I was.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
You get tired of telling a story. You're like, yes. I did not have a lot of friends. I kept a very close.
Yeah.
And again, that was, I was also terrified of my parents leaving me in multiple scenarios, anyone leaving me. My parents would go to Pistons games and I would just shake and sob and think they weren't coming home.
And you think that stemmed from being adopted, the abandonment part?
Yeah. I do. I think so. I stayed with her for 2 months. So not only was I with her for 9 months before I was born, then another 2 months. And then I spent 2 months with a foster family. And then I was 2 months later adopted.
What was the foster family like?
Wonderful.
Great. Wow, good.
They were just absolutely wonderful, amazing people. They're both gone now. They've been gone for a long time. Their names were Darla and Norris. And they just were the epitome of foster parents. I went and visited them up until they came to my open house when I graduated high school.
Yeah.
They stayed apart as many of their foster kids' lives as they could. And they had 5 children of their own.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Somebody was looking out for me, because I have all of the best case of everything. I hate saying I'm lucky because everybody wants me to say it.
Honestly, I think a lot of us adoptees have a lot of luck on our side.
I really do.
We wouldn't have ended up where we are right now without it.
Absolutely.
And I think that's something to think about. But wow, okay. So I guess the next stage of your story would be talking about your biological family. Now, were there any communication, reunions, searches? How did, any of that? I'd love to hear about that.
So the day I got my paperwork,
yep.
we all went off on our separate ways, except my dad turned around and went home and spent the day on the computer. And this was early days of, I want to say it was like right after Facebook left, just college students and everybody could get it.
2010.
Yeah. Or 2001. So maybe MySpace. I'm not even sure.
Whoa, yeah, that was way before Facebook, because Zuckerberg wasn't until like 9, I think, and Harvard. So this was the MySpace days and the AOL days. Yeah.
Yeah. No, Dad still uses AOL. But
send me a message on AIM. Jeez.
I get home from school at 2:20. Yep. And my dad calls me downstairs, which is where his office was.
Yep.
And he pulled up the computer screen and he said, I found your mom.
Oh.
And he had found her somehow.
Wow.
Somehow he had found her listed in her stepsister's wedding party. And it was posted somewhere. And my dad was able to find it. And I mean, it tumbled like dominoes from there. He had a phone number for me. He was incredibly. My dad is an adoptee, but in family. My dad was adopted by his aunt.
Got it. Yeah.
So he does have some.
So he kind of understands. Yeah.
And he knew how they my whole life, they knew how important it was to me.
Right.
So it
Right.
meant the world to me that they did that. And they encouraged me, and they said, get in the car or get on the phone or do whatever you're going to do.
So
Because I was
when you
impulsive.
got that information, that phone number, what'd you do next?
It's So I don't beat around the bush. I was like, well, you put your information in there, so I guess that means you want to talk to me, you know. So I just called, and I called and said, I'm just going to put a pseudonym in there.
Yeah.
Can I call and speak to Jane Doe?
Yep.
And the man that answered the phone said, Jane, your daughter's on the phone.
Oh.
He said nothing to me. He just pulled the phone away and said, Jane, your daughter's on the phone. He said he knew it was me from the moment I spoke. I sounded just like her.
And who was that?
That was my biological mother's husband who answered
Oh,
the phone.
okay. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And she took the phone, and to be honest, tears. I remember tears. I remember this is all I've been waiting for this day. And then, so this would have been April. I mean, we went from getting the information, finding them, to meeting them within 3 weeks.
Wow.
That was a lot.
That's pretty quick.
I was a gung ho, get it done. This is what I want. I'm gonna get it, and that was how I was for many, many years. So she lived in a different state, not too far, but within driving distance. I did have an aunt and 2 cousins here who lived in the same county I did.
Yeah.
And my cousin was only 5 years older than me.
Okay. Yep.
So my little cousin was turning 10 on April 14th. So everyone was going to be in town. And that was the day we decided to meet, which ironically happened to be the same day that my adoption was finalized in 1983. So there is all these very, very strange coincidences all the way through that just lead me again to believe this is where I'm supposed to be, and this is the journey I'm supposed to take.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
So I drove to meet her.
Yep.
She invited me we met at a diner alone first, and then we would go to my aunt's house, and I would meet the family. Now, she did not give me any more information than that. Just, we'll go meet the family. And it was a very probably surreal experience for the waitress. We just sat in that restaurant and sobbed and cried. And my mom had put together a photo album scrapbook of me for her. So I showed that to her. And she was never able to have more children. So it was pretty hard for her, I think.
Were you the only child?
I was the only child.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so we hit it off right away. We very similar looking. We sound alike. We laugh. Everything about us is very similar.
Yeah.
It's incredibly not unsettling. At first, it's unsettling because you haven't had it at all in your life. And now this person is mirroring everything you're doing.
Yeah.
Without even, and hit it off. She was quite young still. I was 18, so that would make her 32, I believe. She was young and we had fun together. I was 18, bonfires and just kind of got to know each other, hung out. And once we left the restaurant, we went to meet the family. And the family was a lot of people. I felt like it was 30 to 40 people. And I was not anywhere near prepared for this.
Mm-hmm.
And it was 30 to 40 people, half of which were hugging and crying and
Yep.
and you don't know what to do. You feel so special, so incredibly special, but also you don't know these people at all, and you just it's such a strange and surreal and it's an experience I would never trade. But it is my favorite kind of story of that to tell. Is my uncle? I have a great Uncle Terry who my mother lived with when she was pregnant.
Yeah.
And he was very attached. And the hug he gave me, and just, he was so emotional. And to just know that, have that affirmed for me, that there was somebody out there thinking about me, and they did love me. And it was very important to be reaffirmed to me.
Yeah.
And I just fell in with the rest of them. It was very easy. It seemed very easy.
It's like time didn't even matter.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
I definitely, the first holidays were a little hard for me, hearing them talk about, all their childhood stuff. And as I mentioned, I had a cousin 5 years older than me. I also have an uncle who's 15 months older than me. And it was hard thinking about what I missed out on growing up with them.
Yeah.
And we lost my cousin just 2 years after I reunited with the family. He was killed in the armed services. So we took a big loss, and that was a huge backstep for me with that. And I kind of took a break for a little while, and then just rolled back into the life. I had my daughter at this point, and also the out-of-state family members had moved in-state, everyone but my birth mother. So I had an aunt and a grandmother that were out of state that moved in-state.
Wow.
So we got to spend lots and lots of time with them. We were together pretty much every weekend. It was wonderful.
So where's the biological father in all this?
So that is a crazy story, and it spans 20 years. I did not initially contact him. I wanted to kind of just, take one step at a time, and I was overwhelmed. And my birth mother was not very forthcoming at any point about him.
Yeah, they aren't.
And yeah, and immediately was like, well, he's a jerk, don't worry about it.
Yep, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, but he had signed he'd signed my adoption paperwork. He had put this document in there that gave me his information. So I finally I got to the point where the things she was saying made me say, okay, I'm going to do this. So I called. I Googled him and I called. And he was horrible. He was cruel. He was, I don't know how you can say things like that he said to a stranger, let alone somebody that is your dog. I mean, you signed and saying it was your child. And he also had young daughters at this point that were my daughter's age. And so you can edit if I say anything that's
fine. Don't worry, Dee. Okay. We'll take care of it.
All right. I called and, I said my name, and I said I told my adoption paperwork, and you are listed as my biological father. And I was wondering if we could discuss, medical history. If you would like to have a relationship with me, that is something that I would be open to, but I am not, if that's not anything you want, then that's fine.
Yeah.
But I really want the medical history. It's important and I need it. And he said, your mom's a whore. I'm not your father. Too bad. I said, whoa. I said, you signed legal documents, sir. Legal documents to give me away. So if that's the case, okay, then let's do a DNA test. You were teenagers. Let's do a DNA test, right? You wouldn't do it.
Figures.
So it tells me, okay, that means you don't want to prove it. You don't want to prove by DNA that
that's frustrating. That's really frustrating. That's
incredibly
really
frustrating.
honestly disappointing. Yeah.
And he knew I was pregnant when I was having that conversation with him, and it did not stop him from saying any of it. And yeah, he is not a nice guy. So I immediately, of course, went to my birth mother with this information and just said, hey, I know you were teenagers. I don't care. I don't care the circumstances. I'm not going to judge you. If you were in a terrible situation that's hard for you to remember, or, I wanted to make sure she knew that I was never going to look at her differently. I was never going to feel differently about myself because of where I came from. I just needed the truth. And she insisted. It is. There is no one else. It could be no one else. And I believed I believed her. I grew up, I spent 20 years, she loved me. She did what she did to me or for me because she wanted me to have a better life and she cared about me. And unfortunately, that didn't turn out to be the case. And what I ended up learning was from the one person that is supposed to love you, not just unconditionally, but just love you from the get-go, was the person that destroyed me. She destroyed me. And that took a lot out of me. I trust my gut. I have always been that way. It has never led me wrong. And when I'll take you back. So I'm sorry, I'm jumping ahead a little bit.
It's fine. No, it's fine.
How I found out was I had threatened, honestly, when the first phone call with who I thought my father was, when he behaved that way, I said, well, I understand that you have 2 daughters. They will be adults someday. You can't hide me. You're not going to. I said, so you better prepare them because when they turn 18, they will be hearing from me.
Good for you.
All of this time, my birth mother is aware of all of this. And 18 years passed, and I messaged both of them. It was 2 years apart, but I got no response, and immediately my socials were blocked. I had a feeling that was how it was going to go down, but I just, you got to try. For me, I had to try. I just kept having to try until I felt like there was nothing more I could do. And I hate myself for this, but I lived on this high. I was dying on this hill of not paying for my own DNA test. This was not my decision. Everyone else made these decisions for me. I felt like one of them needed to be paying for it. Either the lady who wasn't sure who my father was, which is fine. I don't judge her. Just tell the truth and help me figure it out. Or even my adoptive parents, anybody. I was an angry 18-year-old girl who looked at it saying, this is not my job to do. Somebody else should do this for me. And I know now that wasn't the right approach, but it wouldn't have made a difference. I did finally, more and more as the years went on, and she would not budge she wouldn't speak to me about him. It was just, he is an asshole, shut it down. You don't want anything to do with him. Don't bring it up again. And nothing sat right with me. It just did not sit right. So
the same thing happened with me, with my birth mom. Exact same thing. Every time I tried to bring up my birth father, she would call him terrible names and not want to say anything about him. No.
And did you get an explanation for that? Do you know why?
No.
I haven't either.
No, but granted, I did hear from him eventually, and he was actually a fairly nice guy to me, at least. And I told him, I'm like, yeah.
And did he know? Did he know about you?
No idea.
Neither. Yeah.
It's just so weird. It's just like, there's this whole system in this world where, children like us, we can get thrown into this circumstance, and it's like we get tested, of how things work out.
And over.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. It's crazy. Yeah.
That is something that I don't know if I'm ever going to probably get an answer for. Why?
Trust me, I've asked my birth mom, her sister, my grandmother,
Yes.
cousins,
Mhm.
siblings, why was I actually given up at birth? And guess what? They all have different answers. Nobody's going to tell the truth. Nobody.
Nobody's going to tell the truth.
And
Half of them are going to tell you they wanted you.
yeah.
I got a lot of
And,
that.
and then yeah, and then you can always say, "Oh, okay. Well, if you did, then why am I here?"
Right. Exactly. So, and I don't pull punches. I look at it and say, you made a decision.
Yeah.
And I understand it was a difficult decision.
Yeah.
I was a young mom.
Yeah.
I get it. I don't judge her for her decisions, but you still need to take accountability for them.
Yeah.
And
No.
understand that
Exactly.
you have to take ownership of it.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I was never going to keep it all roses and sunshine. If I was upset about something, I was going to say it.
Yeah.
She got to the point of making jokes about, be careful, I'll give you away again. Things like that when we would be in familial situations. And again, because something up here had just for so long thought, she loves me, she's my biological mother, and how much I loved my daughter. I couldn't imagine that. How could she not love me? And
Exactly.
tell me the truth.
Yeah. Yeah.
And well, something is, they don't. Sometimes they don't.
So I guess my next question is, with the continuation of your story, did we ever have a meeting with your biological family?
As in, let's talk about.
Did you meet your biological mother, your cousin's grandmother?
Oh yes. I'm sorry. Yep, it was my.
So how did that go? Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Yep, it was all of my maternal side. It was overwhelming. There were a lot of people, a lot of names to get to know, a lot of very. It's a weird family tree relationships and all of that. And the strange thing was, I had an aunt who also had a child very young.
Yeah.
And she kept her child. I was the only child in the family to be placed outside of the family. And in fact, they adopted a child into the family. And this was my grandmother, who I am learning recently that is a narcissist and is quite likely the center of this problem.
Yeah.
But the story from her was, she wanted me, but my mother wouldn't let her have me. And, the other story is, well, no,
they all have stories.
That's exactly. That's what I said. I don't want to hear any more stories, because I believe one person, and that's my uncle over here, who's sobbing and talking about how he was walking me around and holding me and soothing me. And that's the one who was taking care of me. It was my great aunt and uncle for those 2 months. And I still get to see them to this day too, which is wonderful.
That's awesome.
That is, it is really.
That was going to my next question is, who are you in contact right now with your biological family, and how's that contact going?
This is great for the most part. I have cut full contact with my mother and grandmother. My mother will not take responsibility. She still tells me that, I have DNA proof that my biological father is the other man's best friend. And upon finding that out, I also found out that he had died 4 months before my DNA match. So there was no way I was ever going to be able to meet him. And he knew that my birth mother was pregnant. And of course, I'm only getting secondhand stories now. I'll never be able to hear it from him. My understanding was that he knew she was pregnant. As far as whether these people know what they're doing. You're 16 when you're having sex, you know what you're doing.
Yeah, exactly. So
I'll never know how that played out. I know that she did not want me. And I know that the first man, the one ended up signing all the documents, definitely didn't want to parent either. But my true biological father would have wanted to parent me. And that's where the biggest problem for me came in. Now she has stolen from us.
Yeah.
She has taken not just from me and my daughter, but from my father, from my siblings, from my nieces, my nephews. I am just, I'm reeling from it. And then to have her mother protect her in that is really upsetting. And all I wanted was an acknowledgement of, you're right, I made a mistake and I should have just said something, and I am incredibly sorry. That's all I needed. And she can't give that to me. She cannot even admit that she's wrong. And that's why I finally said, this is not healthy for me. But I remain in contact. I have 2 aunts, my uncle. I'm still in constant contact with them. I see the extended family, which would be, great aunts and uncles, as much as I can when they are in town and around.
What do you want, I guess, from the next stage of your interaction and your relationship with your biological family? What would you like from that relationship with them?
I would love to work towards, I have siblings.
Yep.
I would love to work toward a sibling, as much of a sibling relationship. I'm an only child. My daughter's an only child. My mom was an only child. I have 0 experience with any of it.
Yep.
And so, I know not growing up together that we're never going to have that same relationship that my husband has with his 3 brothers.
Right.
But I would just love, I just love people, and they're my family, and I would like to be a part of their lives, and I would love for them to be a part of mine. And I think the more people that you have to love you and care about you, that can't be bad. And
I agree.
I'm really excited. It's a scary step moving forward. I blew these people's lives up 4 months after this man passed away. And so I felt a lot of guilt for that. And my sisters and I are incredibly close in age. I have 1 half sister and then 2 sisters that he adopted. Okay. So we are like 40. I'm the oldest, so it's like 42, 41, 40, and then 36, I believe. And then I have a little brother who is 25.
Okay.
So
would you say you feel better now rather than before, knowing all of the information that you now know?
I would say at this stage today, I feel different.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it's a negative different, but I wouldn't give it a lot of positive. I found it very strange that I fought so hard my whole life against my parents who raised and loved me, and I'm pushing them away because I feel like they don't understand me and I don't understand them. Yeah. And as this woman who is supposed to love me is breaking me to pieces, it is allowing me to realize that the woman that raised me loved me more than I ever had any idea. And it took just that moment for that doubt to leave me that had been carrying with me my whole life. Yeah. And in just that realization of, just because she doesn't show love in the same way I do, now that I can look back and see these things, that's a mother. That's love. What this woman did to you is not. That's not love. That's not mothering. That's narcissism.
Yeah. Do you feel like you owe anything to her?
No, I don't. No? I don't owe her a thing, and I have never felt that way. I do not owe. They are, no. And I appreciate you asking that. And I'm sorry, that is a hard one for me because it is so pushed on us to be grateful and to be thankful. And
I know.
No, I'm not thankful that I went through all of these things, that I had my best friend's dad for years going, "Hey, that lady has red hair. Do you think she's your mom?" You know, and I love that part of it. But just
And
dealing with
see,
that your
the
whole
thing is,
life.
with a lot of adoptees, like, struggle with is at one point in our lives, we had to kind of come to terms with the fact that, we came from somewhere else and we came from different people.
Yeah.
And that can definitely mess with who you are as a person. And
Especially when you have no idea and you're like, well, what kind
exactly,
of person could it be?
exactly,
And that
yeah,
scared me a lot. Was it a bad person? Was it,
exactly, yeah,
you know? And then I finally, the final thing that I walked away from all of this,
yeah,
now having fully knowing all of my information,
hmm,
was just, I do feel a lot more peace.
yeah,
I wish things hadn't happened this way. I wish she could have just trusted me and been honest with me. But I understand it's painful for her too, and I can't put myself in her shoes either. I do my best,
right,
but
yeah,
so I will love her from afar, and I will do that for as long as I can. And if we can work it out, I hope we can. But at this stage, I don't think so. I don't think I owe it to her. She got 20 years of my life that my dad didn't get.
yeah,
And I feel like that was a huge loss. So I
oh,
feel complete now that I have all the information. I am sad that, there are answers I'll never get. But I think someday I'll get them. Someday
hmm,
I'll get them. Someday I'll get to meet my dad.
yeah,
I just am positive. I have that positive outlook on it. I definitely have mad and angry and mean days, and I will 100% say I do not owe these people anything. And I have had some considerations about taking this further because of the emotional damage that they all put me through. The illegal, it's a forged adoption. I mean, I'm trying to figure out which way to take this because I can't fix it for me, but I want to fix it for kids in the future. It shouldn't be okay to not, you should not be able to relinquish a child without providing medical information. And I fully believe that you should have to continue to provide it every 5 years until that child turns 18 or you reconnect.
that'd be really nice if it became a law, honestly.
It would be.
And
It's it.
it's even twice as hard to try to enforce that internationally for
Yeah.
international adoptees. I mean, I was adopted from Russia, and we came over with nothing, basically, because
So, are you involved with the issue with the citizenship and deportation because the government wasn't giving the adoptees their citizenship?
oh, no,
You're
we're
probably a little
we're
young
we're
for
all
that.
we're all automatic citizens of Russia. That's
Oh, I mean, America.
oh, no,
Uh,
I'm an American citizen. My parents made sure that they
okay,
like
okay.
readopted me twice when they got me on U.S. soil. We went through the courts here in the U.S. to recertify it. So they crossed everything. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I used to work for the U.S. government, so I'm definitely a citizen, and I still hold. So my previous job actually was I worked in the defense industry, and I
Cool.
still hold security clearance, so I'm
Oh,
very
very
much
cool.
an American citizen.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. No, but you've heard the stories of, and I think a lot of them revolves around the Korean War when they had
Yeah,
a
yeah,
plane or two or three planes
yep,
and they just took these babies and brought them
yeah. No,
and they were
I've heard
deported.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
it's just terrible. And you go through and you read the laws that are getting
I know,
shot
I
down,
know.
and all of them are the ones that protect us, and the ones that get passed are the ones that
Yep,
protect
yep,
the big business.
yep.
So,
So my final question for you is,
mhm,
if you were to leave a word of advice to our listeners and other adoptees, what would it be?
always just communicate, be open and honest with your feelings with everybody, with your however you want to refer to them, adoptive parents, birth parents, real parents, everyone. Just be open and honest with your feelings. It's okay to feel what you feel. And no matter what anyone else says, that it's our story, each individually for us. And we need to do what's best for us. And it's okay for us to do what's best for us. And that's what I really want everyone to know. Like, just, it's okay for us to do this. It's okay for us. And nobody should make us feel bad about that.
Perfect. Wow, Alicia, that was beautiful. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. I am not great on staying. I just got diagnosed with ADHD too, so I'm trying to navigate that.
Yeah, you're doing great. Thank you so much for tuning in and coming on and sharing your experience with us. Really, it means a lot. And
thank you.
We're here for you. And if there is any updates with your story, love to get you back on here. And we're always here for you. So I want to thank you again. Thank you all to our listeners. For those who want to hear Alicia's story, please visit your podcast platform on our website, voiceofadoptees.com. If you or someone you know is adopted, or you have a friend who is adopted, Ethan, you can schedule an interview to be featured on our show. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and rate our episode to spread the voice of adoptees. Check out and subscribe our new Patreon page. On behalf of all of us, we thank you for tuning in and listening, and we will see you next week. Voice of Adoptees. Who am I?
Thanks for listening to Voice of Adoptees. Please take a moment to like, subscribe, and leave a review. See you next time.